Good evening, Jim.
Hi Claire, how are you? Good morning.
Yeah, yeah. Always feel well. We are a day apart, 11 hours difference, right? Speaking to you from yesterday.
Well, I feel a sense of achievement as a duo or a double act where we're kind of, all right, okay, it's morning where you are. Yes, triumph.
Good. We are at day 4, natural communication.
We are day 4. Yes, the journey so far. I hope everybody has been enjoying it. And yeah, how have you enjoyed the journey of the 4 days, Claire?
I feel it's been a process of us really just to show up, to teach, but also in a way to relate to our own experiences, because I feel with deepening your relationship and each other's, our own relationship with nature, I should say, it is all about experiences in the end. The learnings are definitely important, because with a structured learning that we're doing here, people will be equipped with tools and processes to go deeper, right? It's like, why do you get bothered to get trained? Because you want to be better, right?
Yeah. I mean, at the very least, I would be happy if we can signpost people and kind of at least spark curiosity to go, oh, okay, well, what's over there? I hadn't thought of it like that. Or I mean, yes, as far as teacher, you don't like being called a teacher, and I certainly don't. So yeah, because I'm not. It's not what I do.
But we're just here
thankfully.
Yeah, we're just here to show up. I sometimes don't even like to use the word lead, but sometimes I think, okay, we're leading among others, so it's leading as well as organizing. So I'm like, okay, well, at least that's resonating with me, so I'm okay.
Yep. I was thinking, well, the image that was coming to my mind was rambling through a meadow of flowers, to be honest. The leading or the exploration. And that's, I suppose, sharing that journey with other people in whatever regard. I mean, that's where that communication between us as humans in this particular dynamic works really well, because of course we can share that. And when that's done in that life-affirming manner that we were talking about last night, then that is positively contributing to the impact that we as a species can have. Because obviously, as a species, we do have impacts, and I think we're all very aware that they're not all particularly good impacts. And we look at other species around us that have this natural grace, and the balance, that dynamic balance of an ecosystem, which is changing and transforming constantly. It all works because it all fits together. And then we come along, we don't understand the messages that we're getting. We forget to communicate. We forget to ask consent or permission, or to sense the correctness of our actions. And maybe that's why it's gone a little bit wrong. Yeah.
Well, I think you just have given us a perfect segue into natural communication, Jim.
Oh, there you go. Wow, I'm getting the hang of this. Maybe. I'll probably cut myself off.
Because I've heard the words, the messages, the permission, right? The communication. So, to me, these are all very important learnings, if you like, about natural communication. So, if I may ask you first, in your experiences and the views you derive, if you like, from your experiences, what is natural communication?
For me, it's a intricately inexplicable thing, and the best that I can write down, well, the best, no. So I get caught between the need for robustness, or I'm not getting carried away with what what I would like it to be. what I fancy it to be, and what I imagine it to be, because that is, as we were saying, you know, that might be my beliefs. You know, I have my understanding, or what I like to understand or imagine might be behind what I see and feel and sense. Excuse me. But I can only experience the way that I experience my connection to nature, and I can't understand anybody else's, really, because it's one of those things that, you know, the closest I could get, one way of looking at it is that a dynamic feedback loop through the use of senses as broadly as we can, so that as we are physically moving through this a web of interacting presences, awarenesses, behaviours, responses, cycles, physicalities, all these things, as we move through that, we are causing a disturbance. And by that, I don't mean necessarily a negative one, but it is having a presence. We are, by our existence, imposing an action and a presence. So, but of course, with the non-duality, as one, there is no difference. There is no fundamental boundary or difference between that particular presence that I experience myself to be, traveling through the rest of what I am, or we is. You know, it's that paradoxical plural singular thing. So the thing about the nature communication, I was trying to think of a way that I could describe it, in my understanding of it, that could fit in, you know, from various different aspects, from people who have a very strong spiritual understanding of it, through to those who come to it through the awe that is created from things from quantum science, and, you know, that mechanical but still awe-inspiring stuff. For example, Professor Brian Cox's series, his latest one, Universe. Just to build awe in our existence. Watch that series; it's phenomenal. He kicks off by saying, "If religion isn't for you, don't worry, because this is just as good." You know, and he just dives into from a scientific point of view, and it does it for me. It raised such a feeling of awe and increased a feeling of connection. So there are different ways of approaching all this kind of thing. So this dynamic feedback loop of what my awareness of where I am and how that is affecting my surroundings through my interpretation of the feedback I'm getting, the messages. So, for example, you might hear beautiful bird song. You might not be aware that it's actually telling you to get out of this territory, and it's actually really rather angry with you, and it's not singing you lovely songs, you know, and that's because of interpretation of the message. So, yeah, a dynamic feedback loop, which we obviously interact through, so we can alter and adapt ourselves. For example, the thing about asking for permission, we dived into that, and I was talking about the feeling of correctness, you know. So I was pondering on it afterwards. I was thinking, well, perhaps asking the question, is this the right time and place for me to be asking into this issue? Because as we are intimately linked, and the separation is an illusion, that feeling of correctness, if that flow is there and it feels correct, then could that be taken as permission and consent? That's a view, a point for discussion, maybe. So that's one way I would like to offer my interpretation in that nature communication, and that may be different if you ask me tomorrow. But there you go.
I feel it's just well, I just need to ground for a little moment, because because I think I got distracted by the patterns on your shirt a little bit. And also there were like, I was like, oh, is that like he's got like a fancy pattern on his shirt, or is it like a paint? Like, I was just, like,
Spilt my dinner down it. Absolutely no. It is a pattern. It is a pattern.
oh, okay.
Actually, I was thinking. I was looking at the background. I was thinking. I have a shirt which I might wear tomorrow, and I think I might actually be able to create the floating head effect. I think I might actually blend completely in, and I'll just be here with my headphones. I might give it a go. We'll see.
It's so good that I took the moment to clarify, because I was like, not sure what's the best move next. But I just want to show up again as humans, because if I didn't clarify that, I just feel I couldn't get myself present with you.
It's fine, Claire. Don't forget, you can watch the recording if you miss anything. You know, you can.
Yeah. But I think what I'm hearing from you is natural communication in your experiences can be communicated from a very scientific point of view, and then and there is a spectrum, and also to cater for people who are very spiritual, right? So I think the next question I would like to ask, and of course I'll be answering questions as well from you, is can you give us an example to cater for people who are very scientific, example of natural communication?
Well, I just want to clarify that I don't think that science can explain nature communication. Mm-hmm. I think it's an area that it can be approached from, because I don't think that spirituality can explain nature communication, or rather religions and belief systems and faiths, they will offer their view of an explanation. That's fine. Science offers a theory, which is something they're testing. I don't think either have the complete understanding to be able to authoritatively say this is what nature communication is. So what I'd rather do is give you an example that happened, and I don't know how it can be explained scientifically, but it happened, so there must be a scientific, or at least when it's scientific, that's just about understanding how it happened, whatever it is, how it occurs. That's science, you know. So actually, right at the beginning of the 5-day, I talked about a backstory. So this is the backstory. So thank you very much. That's a great leap. I like this. So one evening, the kids were going to bed. It was their bedtime. Walk into their bedroom, and the curtains are drawn, and there's a very large moth on the curtain, and it, you know, such a size that the kids went, oh, "Look, Dad!" And I said, "Oh yeah, look, you've got a bat on your curtains." And they said, you know, they giggled and said, "Yeah, don't be daft, Dad. It's a moth, isn't it?" So yeah, absolutely. Dealt with the moth, took it outside, said goodnight, stories and all the rest of it, and that was that. The very next evening, bedtime comes along. We open the door. Curtains are not drawn. Hanging off the curtain pole was a bat. A real, living, visiting bat. There is no way, at that point, there was no entrance point, no open windows, nothing into that bedroom. Now, the nearest window I could ascertain was about 35 feet through 2 doors and through a cheese plant with a window that was open about that wide. So yes, a bat could have made that journey, but the likelihood is ridiculously small. I don't see a huge amount of bats around the house. There are some, but you know, never there. So that is something that happened, and I can't explain that scientifically. And of course, the reason that I mentioned that in the aspect of nature communication, because obviously I hope it was obvious that, you know, all of a sudden there's a bat when we've been talking about one the night before. So it would seem that not only is nature communicating, but it also has a really nice sense of humour. you'll be glad to know that interestingly, I suppose the end of the story is that because of the way, I had to screw the windows shut because it was a long, big opening window, and only the top ones work. So I had to leave the bat hanging there on the thingy, go and get a power drill, come back, unscrew the window, climb up, and get the bat. And it was there. It was, you know, I think it was tired, and it was fluttering. It was attentive. It was watching what was going on, and so I managed to get hold of it with no bother and held it down. You know, brought it down, and the kids looked at it, and this cute little thing with little fox fangs, and you know, looks up, and there you are. And I set it free, and it last I saw of it, it was heading towards Wales. So, you know, there you go. So science, yes, but not yet. Yeah, how could that happen? So do you have any experiences that have resonated, you know, with such an irrefutability to yourself? For me, that just brought a gratitude of thank you so much for demonstrating in a way which I can't, you know, I don't understand. I don't need to, but it's just like, yes, it's here. You know, yeah. Have you had stuff, you know, deep experiences?
I mean, in terms of the deep experiences, I certainly do. When you were asking me that, the first thing that came to my mind was after I recovered from lymphoma, was 2015. It was like a year later. My partner and I, we moved down from Sydney to Melbourne, and we settled down in our new apartment, and I found out that I actually became pregnant, which was not expected. And what was interesting was my hematologist back then, I don't think he was too fond of me getting pregnant within a year span. He did not express the language in such a way that he was not fond. But he said, just to be careful. And of course, I left Sydney and I had to find a new doctor. So I just wasn't sure, well, what to do with this situation, because all of a sudden my whole world was turned upside down, right? Mm. So I went to the botanical garden. I thought, well, that was the biggest garden I could get access to from where I live. I went there, get myself present, and I asked nature. I said, what shall I do in this situation? I found myself pregnant. And nature just said to me, it's going to be all right. It's going to be such a good pregnancy, and just relax and just trust. And of course, it didn't take me one ask to go, okay, I'm just going to trust because nature told me I'll be fine. Mm-hmm. We all have a very healthy dose of self-doubt, right? And particularly, you know, as a person who recovered from cancer just a year, and of course, with my human conditioning, doctors always have the authorities, right? To a degree, sometimes they know perhaps more than I do in my human body, about my human body. I still have that, but it's getting less and less. It took me, like, okay, the first visit is like this. Okay, I'll relax. I'll keep the kid. I thought I was just gonna have one. And
did he get to the park gate and kind of look back over and go, really? Are you sure?
So, you know, in the following days and weeks and months, I just kept going back because I felt that's all I need, really. And of course, I had doubts along the way, but then I had appointments with the obstetrician, and every time I went, the doctor goes, very good, very good. And of course, as I progressed along, the further I was into the pregnancy, the more I realized nature was right all along. Right. And and I had a good delivery with the kids as well. So that was that. That was one of the most profound experience for me about nature communication. Is I was like totally shocked, did not know what to do, because I was hoping to continue with my coaching business, but I had to take a break and become a mother. And I was not sure whether that was the right time to become a mother, but nature knows more than the doctor.
And so there, I suppose, obviously a tremendously profound message to be communicating to you. Here's twins and motherhood, parenthood.
Yeah.
When you asked and you got the answer from nature saying it'll be okay, would you mind talking a bit about how that message was transmitted? Was it a feeling of how did it communicate to you?
Yeah, I must let viewers know that at that point I was trained with this process that we are teaching, if you like, during the 5-day your natural self exploration. So I was equipped with a process to communicate with nature, and I was taught by my trainer that nature communicates through senses, and it communicates with us in a silent language, obviously. So the way it was communicated to me was I knew that when I had this huge life-changing situation, I needed to ground myself first. So there was no point to go in and try to get the answer straight away and treating nature is all-knowing, because nature does know, but it wouldn't communicate to me the message that I could hear if I did not ground myself first. So I spent a lot of time grounding and made sure that I was in a brainwave state that was quiet enough, like a meditative state, if you like, to be able to hear clearly what nature was trying to communicate to me. And I think the details I could not remember, but sometimes was just really like the silent voice. I mean, it's not silent voice. It's like when I say silent, I could not hear nature speaking to me from outside, but it's that voice inside me. It's like my intuition, but I could tell the difference that it is not me speaking to myself. It was from wisdom greater than myself communicating to me that you're going to be okay. Other times, I think it was through the way that the wind perhaps blew the bushes or the trees was communicating to me, you're going to be fine, in a very soothing way. It's like the body languages of nature is like humans, but I saw it. And because it was like humans, it was familiar to me. So I looked at it, and the moment of that communication, like, just relax, you got this, and it's going to be all right. And of course, it was not because just purely built on the beliefs, right? I went to the doctor. I had my checks, right? So I forgot the frequency, but every time I went, the doctor said it was fine. So it actually reinforced my communication and the messages I received. I'm going to be fine.
And I suppose also, as you say, it's not as if you just blindly accepted that first message. Went, okay, thank you very much. Won't ask any more questions.
Yeah.
You went through the process, which was encouraging and obviously positive as you went, but you went back to ask again and again.
Yeah.
And so it was you were testing, I suppose, the resolution of that. So how was that? How did that unfold?
I'm not sure I quite understand the question, Jim. I thought I have already answered it, but would you mind paraphrasing?
Yeah, for sure. I was just wondering about the times that you went back afterwards. Was it a feeling of just having made the right decision and it was going well, or was there, were the doubts answered in particular any different way, or if it was just a reassurance?
And again, I think natural communication from nature, getting assurance from nature was one thing, but I think there's also the part that I trusted my body, because at that point of my life experience, I have trained myself, if you like, to trust my own body's wisdom more and more. And our bodies are not separate from the natural world, because when we die, we go back to the earth, right? Right.
Absolutely, yes, but yeah.
And for me to trust my own body, knowing that the right decision, excuse me, was actually to continue with the pregnancy, and also hearing nature's support, and also the confirmation from the doctor, and looking at my own bodily response, because the whole time I was only sick twice.
Wow.
Yeah. And I was like, okay, my body can handle this. My doctor was surprised. So you do not become sick. Okay, women are normally very sick at this stage. I was like, okay, not me.
Yeah, I mean, that is an immensely powerful message, isn't it? Yeah, you know, not only are you going to do all right, you're going to do triumphantly through this, and there you go.
Yeah.
Wow, tremendous! And thank you again for your openness and depth of sharing on your reflections of obviously personal, deeply personal experiences.
Oh, thank you.
So yes, thank you. So I suppose there are just two examples of nature communication amongst, you know, the trillions and myriad that there are. And I guess that again speaks to the variety, the style, the interpretation, the you know, everything about it. And I think that the fact that you questioned and rechecked in nature and with nature the correctness of your situation, and again the positive feedback through that is what was guiding you, what you took for guidance. So I think, you know, along with anything else external, there is of course the you know, as coaching does, it encourages the increase of clarity through approaching an issue from a different angle, from maybe a new perspective. And so messages from nature can inspire that sort of stuff in the same way as, you know, I think I've said before, like, similar to I Ching. You know, it's a prompt to a starting place to approach an issue. You know, so yes, yeah, really, really fascinating stuff. Sorry, you were gonna.
I want to ask you a question. I think actually I got two questions. I'm just trying to figure out which one I should ask.
You're picking up my bad habits, Claire. That's why. Two questions at once. Oh dear.
I want to go, because we are on the flow. Actually, now I think I'm changing my mind. What do you think the purpose of getting nature's permission, if you like, in helping us as individuals improve our emotional well-being and deepening our relationship with the natural world?
The role of getting permission from nature, and how that impacts upon maintaining emotional balance.
Yeah, and also deepening our
okay.
relationship with the natural world.
So again, for me, you may have noticed I keep on going back to correctness rather than permission, because of like the way that I am currently seeing this. And I am currently going through a period of time of, you know, a very acute situation where my need to maintain emotional balance is actually really rather important for other people. And that is in the face of clinically irrational stuff. So yeah, the aspect of just seeking, checking the correctness of what I am bringing to that situation, and that if that is still the best thing, because trying to sense into, there's a one from the theory you approach it is the emerging future, and you know, we can imagine, we can imagine what might happen in the near future or the far future, whatever. But as it's unrolling, it's a kind of sensing into that as it's emerging and appearing in our reality, in my reality, and the sinking into, or the application of, the process that we've been talking about over the last 4 days up till now, to have a very anchoring effect in highly turbulent situation, which could be an easy one to, you know, just say the wrong thing, or just lose patience, or make a slip, or whatever. So that constant checking in of what would be the most life affirming thing to do at this point. And so that also, I bring in a lot of, I depend, rely on the approaches and concepts of modern Stoicism, where it speaks about, you know, control, and where is your limit of control, and not wasting energy on things that are outside of your control, because that's a waste of energy and time and all this, and it just messes you up more than anybody else. So why do it? Save that energy and effort and time for focusing on what is the most life affirming thing to do, and put energy into that. So yes, I find it tremendously reassuring in maintaining emotional balance. I also, you know, I mentioned the other day about the mouse and the bag of oats, and then how it got its own back on me with putting oats in my pocket. That sort of stuff is because, you know, it is, I am in serious times. There's, you know, no doubt about it. There's a lot of heartache going on, a lot of pain, a lot of sadness, and a lot of correctness, which, you know, is in this bittersweetness of having to do or seeing the correct thing being done, and also at the same time experiencing and living the pain and the hardship of that. You know, not only in my own experience, but witnessing other people going through their experience of the same situation. So at times when nature communicates, or I see messages and I interpret messages from nature in whatever way they are, sometimes they are very obvious, and often have a certain amount of humor to them for me. So yes, it's very reassuring. I mean, the fact, I do count myself so immensely fortunate to have found myself in situations where, you know, the fundamental question of, does it exist? Is there a connection? Is there a communication between me and external nature? For me, yes, it has been answered. So, you know, the question of faith is no longer there for me. And in actual fact, it's not faith, because it has happened to me in my experience enough for me to stop questioning. So therefore, you know, I can't give you statistics or empirical evidence. Actually, that's not true. I had photographs of the butterfly. But there you go. So yes, that's how I find it very, very reassuring. And also, I think the constant exploration, that is affirming, that is useful, because the more you play with it and the more explore, and the more you soften away from the need for the rigid box of it must fit like this and look like this, and get back into the childlike exploration and acceptance and open-minded, it becomes more apparent and more enjoyable. So yeah, there are many ways that I think that's really useful for emotional balance.
Again, I think there are a lot of layers and nuances in your answers, but I want to just pick one. I so like that when you say with natural communication, it's about just to go and experiment, right? Just be open-minded and curious, just like child. And there's no one fit box to say that nature communication must look like this, right? At the beginning of our conversation, though, that you did mention that how do I differentiate, and also I think through various words that you said, there's a word called correctness, if I understood it correctly. So how do we differentiate, or if we can differentiate? Okay, this is the message that nature communicates to me, and perhaps this is my own imagination, which is not grounded.
How can we differentiate?
Or can we differentiate?
Well, one, I suppose a quick answer, not necessarily the right one, is follow the advice and see if it works. And if it doesn't work, then you need to ask why. Did I follow the advice, or did I follow my intuition and in the way that was still in alignment with that life-affirming path that I saw at the beginning, or did I wander off it? Have I brought in this or not? If it works, then you go, okay, that one worked. Not necessarily because of the nature communication, because just it happening once, correlation is not causation, is it? Obviously a famous thing. But then that's the curiosity, isn't it? And if nothing else, we've got our life. This is exploration, which is like a mystery story that we have right inside us. I mean, what else have we got to do with our time? Other than try and repair the damage that we've done in the physical world. The stoical, one of the things about that is their goal was to pursue the pursuit of virtue, which has slightly different connotations to how we contemporarily understand virtue. But basically, it's how to act in harmony with your inner and outer nature and do the best and cause the less stress and enjoy self the most. Stoicism is not about necessarily stiff upper lip, and Stoics can laugh and have fun. So it's massively misunderstood by a lot of people. I forgot where I started on that one. I hope you remember.
I so like when you say that, take the advice from nature, or the advice from the communication, and see what happens in your life, right? And again, that requires actually a huge amount of openness, right? Because we so want it to be correct in the moment. We so want to make sure everything's going to be fine, that we go, then we might actually cast doubt on the messages we get from natural communication, isn't it?
But I think that's great, because that's the question, isn't it? So if you follow the advice and you're beginning to feel uncomfortable or difficult and uncomfortable, if it feels uncomfortable and lacking in correctness as you pursue that path, then we'll question it, look at it, what needs to change or what can you change to get it back into the direction of feeling more correct. I think a greater danger is not checking when it feels good, when it feels correct. Are you sure that's correctness, or is that just because you think, yeah, great, this is what I want to do? And find out, no, honestly, nature advised me that I needed to buy a private jet so that I can get around the place more quickly, but it promises to deliver me green aviation fuel in the next 10 years. Like, really? Did it though, actually? So I think you need to be really careful with stuff like that.
So how does nature communication interplay with all the topics that we've been covering in the previous days? The natural presence, the body, the attraction. I know it's so hard sometimes to differentiate, right? But how do you see that perhaps one lead to the other, or one really is assisting the other, if you like, or without this, then this would not happen?
Well, I think you know, as this, in a way, you might look at it as it's a set of stepping stones. Although perhaps it actually doesn't work, because I'd rather be in the stream than crossing it. But anyway, you've got it's one way to get across the stream. It's not the only way. Yeah. But this approach, I was doing it kind of standing up in the middle of a bunch of stuff that was coming at me, and I was kind of going, yeah, and I really need to just, you know, I'm not gonna. We were talking the other day about making that pause before you act, to get the time and to question the correctness. And so whilst I was doing that, it was like, right, okay, before I act, I need to just take literally 30 seconds to look out the window and pause that and look out the window at the autumn colours on the trees, sink into that a little bit more, think about checking my bodily sensations. I could feel various emotions, you know, rising up their, their path, acknowledging those, and thereby, because I had become aware of those sensations in my body and the emotion, you know, the consequences of that, they'd been almost, you know, it's acknowledged, so therefore they didn't need to keep on sending the message, so they didn't get any higher. And I settled into the natural communication, and was able to turn back into the conversation with a lot of calmness, still hearing and still going, I still think you're what you're saying is not good. And I won't go into detail, obviously, but you know, there was conflict and discomfort with what I was experiencing. So witnessing that, allowing it, and not fueling it, and just so being able to look back, and in my opinion, my judgment, because of course we are the person that we spend all our life with, and so that's quite important to have, try and have a good opinion of yourself if it's worth it. Then I can look back on that and go, okay, yep, through that process, that allowed me to behave in a way that I'm happy with, to look back and go, yep, that was all right for that one. It was good enough, certainly. Probably could have been better, but it was good enough.
I want to tease out the natural communication a little bit more, perhaps, because today we are on that topic. So what happened in your experience when you UK? I'm sensing my body UK. I'm perhaps going to move towards the window a little bit so I could look out, because we can see a lot of nature out there. So what happened in your experiences in relation to natural communication in that specific instance?
Well, as I was looking out the window, I was acknowledging very strong emotions, the rising of anger, of fear for other people, injustice, miscommunication, or a lot of the complex fear-based, like this is not going well and could get worse. And I recognized that was signifying in myself to a degree, and amongst other things, a fear of not being able to respond to that situation in a way which would honor the situation for all involved. Some needing more honor than others, not because they deserve, not because they value things, that there were more consideration is needed to be given to some rather than others for various reasons. And so the communication was a reminder of hospitality, or holding and accommodating, and unconditionality, and things like, there are aspects and time situations where a painful intervention, a painful but correct thing is required for a more beneficial, safer, more enjoyable solution in the future. But there was going to be some pain inevitably involved, and to surrender to that, and to not let my fears get in the way of the way I presented myself. The fears were protecting my own emotional satisfaction, my own emotional desire, which can get in the way of the best solution. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Tim. That was profound. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I'm having to obviously check how much detail I'm going into, because it's about other people, not just me. I mean, if it was all just about me, let's talk about just me. There you go. No, so I have to be careful about what I say.
Yeah. And I just want to quickly touch upon what makes an individual being able to embody that nature communication, like in your personal experience, because it's like intuition, right? I use the word like, not quite sometimes, because if we know our intuition, but if we don't put into action, then intuition is just an idea, right? So what, in your experience, what makes you or what enables you to embody your natural communication?
Practice and talking with peers, being honest with myself and others, and I think it goes both ways. We have to obviously recognize our own impact and our own failures and shortcomings, but also we need to be very careful not to necessarily accept all the sticks that we might get handed to beat ourselves with at the request of other people, as in their opinions and what you feel they may want you to be, do, or whatever. So this thing about being able to look back with at your behavior and how your demeanor through a particular situation with satisfaction is, for me, is quite a guiding thing. But I think I really struggle with being asked how I am able to embody my natural body, because I managed to do it sometimes. So there's a lot of time that I spend not acknowledging my nature connection. However, fundamentally, one sure way that I know that you can connect with nature is being alive. That's pretty much all you need. We are always connected to nature. Whether we choose to look at that, choose to explore it or not, is the different matter. So having the desire to and the curiosity to find out if perhaps we have been encouraged to ignore certain aspects of the information and messages that we get from the outside world, which could be very useful and used in a different way, which would produce a different result from the one we are watching the damage of, the outfall from, the catastrophe of. Interestingly, Adam Smith, economics guy from the 1800s, I think, maybe, author of one of the most seminal books here on accounting, also wrote a really interesting book about interrelations between people, and it's all about interrelatability. And he talks about, drawing back he compares the skill of looking at yourself honestly to that of a surgeon. And I'm not suggesting at all that I'm a surgeon, although fun actually saying that. We are brain surgeons. each and every one of us. When you change your behavior, you are creating, physically changing the different pathways of neural synaptic communication. So over a period of time, physical changes are happening in your brain due to a change of behavior, which is, initially fueled by determination and practice and focus and dedication, usually. But then it becomes more automatic. And so we have, in that situation, it's like, learning an instrument, playing an instrument. It's hard as hell when you start, but then after a while, it becomes second nature. That's a very fitting term.
I want to perhaps quickly touch upon one more question, and I know that you've got to go. Because when you said, we change our behaviors, right? It made me think about how I often see people say, oh, it's so hard to change our behaviors. And since we're talking about the natural world during this 5-day exploration, what role, if you like, the natural world has played in helping you becoming a better version of yourself, if you like? I know it sounds very cliche because we use it a lot, but I got.
She said, "I just want to touch quickly on this one, Jim." She says, "From very, very, very physical. When I discovered or read a few years back that there's a mycobacteria, I think it is, in the soil. I can't remember what it's called, but it has properties about it that elevate your mood, and bizarrely enough have effects not unlike Prozac but nicer, as I've heard a comparison made. So just purely by working with your hands in the soil, and this is a widespread. It's not found in a particularly sacred place halfway up a mountain. This is in a lot of soils around the globe. So just by working with the sand, the soil in your hands, you are, from a very physical way, boosting your well-being. Similarly, walking through forests, particularly because the phytoncides are being falling out of the stomata of the trees and from the flowers. All these things have a very physical effect, and then you can go through the spectrum of the psychological effect, just of the peace. One thing that I think is brilliant about being in nature is that there are fewer expectations, fewer opinions to give a shit about. So that when you're going through a forest, rather than being in an urban environment or at work or in a family or wherever, people have demands and expectations, and there's etiquettes and protocol and all this kind of stuff. In nature, it seems to be a little less important. So there's a dropping away of that, and the serenity, or not, depends if you're standing next to a waterfall. There's so many different ways. And then with that is the recognition of for me, the recognition of cyclical nature and the transience of stuff. Where you were saying, you referred earlier to how our bodies, we will return to nature. I mean, we are in slow motion changing physically, renewing, obviously, as we grow and replace cells. So we are changing, we are nature, we are just a very slow cycle, even though we talk a lot, quickly sometimes. So yeah, a lot of stuff that you can just draw on, or at least I do.
Yeah. And I think in my personal experience, how nature helped me change my behaviors is a very gradual process. Like you said, nature makes me feel better, and when I feel better, all the noises in my head just tend to go away, or perhaps they're still there, but they're just not affecting my behaviors or reactions that much. And slowly and surely, you just move on, and you look back 7 years ago, go, geez, that was different back then.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking back in time, and And it's nice to look back and recognize changes, and it's and also at the same time recognize things. Oh yeah, that bit still needs to change perhaps. And,
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Jim, for
Thank
spending
you, Claire.
time here again. And we are almost at the end of 5-day, and tomorrow is going to be our last live.
Oh, indeed. Yes. Yeah. I might bring a glass of wine. Yeah. We'll see.
Yeah. I mean, I did the celebration picture on the event photo. I thought it's very fitting for the situation.
Absolutely. Yes, indeed. Well, thank you, Claire, for your ongoing
so much,
support,
Jim.
turning up and doing all this. So,
Yeah.
yes, I'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah. See you, Jim. Thank you.
Bye-bye.